It really is about long-term economic empowerment. So we've helped people go from $10 an hour jobs to $25 an hour jobs, right?
Oh,
So
yeah.
it's got to be a long-term solution. It can't just be you build a building, you go to the next neighborhood and you build another building. That's all fine and good, but it doesn't have a deep enough impact for the folks who deserve it.
What is up, everybody? We are back for another episode of the Outreach Podcast. And listen, we've got a very special guest. I know I say that a lot. I always mean it, but we got a very special guest, Dr. Gina Merritt. Dr. Gina, thank you for being with us today. How are you?
I am blessed and highly favored. Thank you for
Yes.
having me.
Yes. Listen, we are going to get into a lot here. You've got an amazing story. You're doing some amazing things, and I want to make sure that we provide, enough time for us to get into some of these things. When you think back, over your career and how you got into it, because we always like to highlight various journeys about how people got to where they are, and everybody has their own story. And one of the things that we try to showcase is regardless of where you come from, a lot of times, if you take inventory of what you have gone through or going through, you see how those things actually serve a purpose into you getting where you have the potential to accomplish some significant things. So share with us a little bit, if you don't mind, kind of your journey about how you got to where you are.
Sure. It's been really quite an interesting journey. Starting when I was about 13 years old, my mom passed away. And then, sort of every few months for the next couple of years, somebody significant in my family passed away. My cousin Lisa, who I was named after, my middle name is Lisa, my grandmother, my grandfather, both of my father's parents, my cousin Lisa's mother, my auntie. And so, as a young person, I really tragically had suffered really challenges around multiple deaths in my family, close family members at a young age. And starting with my mother, I wound up having to take care of a household full of kids because I'm the oldest. And so I spent a number of years taking care of my siblings, like doing all the household chores, helping folks with homework, right, doing the laundry, like all the things essentially a parent would do. I wound up going to college, Howard University, and that was kind of by accident. Uh, and I went there originally to do psychology. That was what I was interested in. And then I wound up in MIS. Right before I went to college, I did some data entry at a company my father worked at. And I was so mesmerized by computers and what was going on behind them. So I decided to change from being a psychologist to being I guess you would call now a software developer. But back then it was actually called a programmer. So I did that in college. I actually then went to work at the electric company in New York, went to Wall Street, and then realized on Wall Street, I mean, it was fun, living the sort of financial services kind of life. I got to travel to Europe, but it wasn't fulfilling. So then I decided to go to business school, and there also wanted to figure out something more meaningful. I got recruited back to another investment bank actually over the summer. And then I realized, well, that's not really for me either. Again, not very fulfilling. So then I got out of graduate school and I wound up with a job at this construction company in the DC area. And what came to light on my first day of work when I walked up to the job site and I saw this humongous bulldozer, I basically started trembling in my car, crying and trembling. Why, you ask? Because since I was about 7 years old until I was about 15 years old, I would have a recurring dream multiple times a week that a bulldozer was chasing me. Sometimes it would catch me, sometimes it wouldn't catch me, but every time I had this dream, I'd wake up like trembling and afraid. All of that was brought back to me my first day on the job site, seeing
Wow.
this bulldozer. Really, then I understood it was a divine calling. right? I had no idea why I was being chased through my teenage years in my dreams because again, I wound up in MIS, right? Programming. So that was really a circuitous route in terms of what I was supposed to be doing in life. So I started that job doing affordable housing. That was a very long time ago, like about 30 years, 30 years if I have to call it out.
Yeah.
And so I've been so happy, since that first day at work working for somebody else. I've never been happier though about the community development work that I embarked on 30 years ago and that now, at least for the last 25 years, I've been doing on my own.
Wow. Wow. Now that's a very amazing story. I know
Thank.
even that version is very consolidated,
Yes,
right?
sure.
Right. But even in that, there's so much, especially losing a lot of
Hmm.
close family members, right? And being able to still go forward despite the loss, and being able to have a faith that takes you forward, despite, you know, pretty much your foundation being shaken when you have that type of loss. Usually, I mean, of course, you think about just the life of one person is hard to recover from, but when you've had multiple people pass away at such a young age and kind of back to back, you would think that people couldn't necessarily recover from that. And so what I love about your story is the perseverance and allowing, those hardships to not break you, but to position you for purpose. You mentioned the dream that you had as well. And I think that's quite interesting because a lot of times, I believe that we're all born with a purpose, right? To accomplish something, to allow humanity to be in a better place, to serve. And, having that type of dream on a recurrent basis, not knowing what it means, but then to get to a point to where you kind of have that revelation of, okay, this is my calling, this is my purpose. That brings a certain fulfillment in life that really nothing else can substitute. I am a huge proponent of purpose, and so thank you for sharing that because I think when we're able to operate in our purpose, that's the sweet spot in life.
It really
Where
is.
your vocation, your gifts, your skills, the way you've been divinely designed, if you will, all comes together, in a way that brings you joy, but also allows for other people to be in a better position because of you, in a lot of different ways.
Appreciate that. I really do appreciate that analysis. I think it is spot on. I forgot to also add that my father was an alcoholic.
Mm,
And so, so the parent that was still living, still was challenging in terms of being raised by him because he was pretty much, absent. So I appreciate that. I do believe it's what gives me the strength and perseverance to do the work that I'm doing. And then something else came to light, which I hadn't really thought about because I have such convictions about this work. I was in a meeting probably a year and a half ago with my business coach. It was our first couple of meetings where he was just talking to me about who I was. And when I was telling him about our platform, Project Community Capital, that's the economic empowerment platform that we founded, he says to me, now I understand why you have such passion for your work and why you've built Project Community Capital. Because he said you too were overlooked and underserved and underestimated, right? And
mm,
and that's our platform is basically built to help those folks who are really in underserved communities that are underestimated and overlooked, which I was really pretty much all of my life and in my career. Was not really cognizant of the fact that that is the thing that was driving me. Not until my business coach, who happens to be a white man,
mm,
saw that in me. And really, I was in tears during that first session with him because I was like, oh my gosh, you are absolutely right. This is why I do it. Um, and I wound up, being able to bring this sort of social impact, right, to affordable housing. People look at affordable housing anyway like it is social impact, right? You're creating an opportunity for people to live in hopefully quality homes for a reasonable price, right? But there are a lot of folks who need an extra hand, right? Who have been living in communities that are underserved, disinvested in, and they just need like one hand up, and then they're off on a different trajectory. And I could see that, right, from my own life experience. And so I wound up creating that platform to do that work and attach it to our affordable housing. We don't do affordable housing without that part of the work, right? We're helping people gain employment, education, training, supportive services, and entrepreneurship. But I think it is definitely my sort of challenging life that has brought me to this place. And to your point, I think it was divine, right, that I would be doing this work. But every single day I get up in the morning, I am so happy
Mm,
about what I do.
yeah, yeah. And I'm sure others are as well, right?
Yes. I appreciate that. I mean, you are right. I'll tell you just one or two stories because I think it is important, like for the audience to hear. Um, we helped a gentleman who was a returning citizen. We placed him into employment, and then 2 weeks after we placed him into employment, his brother, who was driving him to work, said he was going to stop driving him to work because he wanted him to sell drugs.
Mm,
And so his brother stopped driving him to work, and we gave the guy 2 or 3 months of transportation passes so he could get to work and he could save money over that time so he could get himself to work. And then a few weeks later, he reaches out and says the state took all of the money out of his bank account he had saved, which was about $1,350, and used it to pay back child support, even though he had a child support agreement in place and he was paying out of his paycheck through his employer. So we sent the $1,350 back to his father, right? And then we called the head of child support at the state because we could. And then we got the head of child support to talk to his local people to fix the problem so they'd stop taking money out of his checking account.
yeah.
So we helped that person stay on the trajectory of their lives. They were happy for the second chance. It's a returning citizen. This guy is the hardest worker this company has ever had,
Mm,
right? Because he's happy for the second chance. But life was lifing
yeah.
and would have thrown him off track, right?
Yep.
We helped another woman who she had four jobs, 80 hours a week. She worked a 12-hour shift in the emergency room during COVID, even. And she had been looking for one sort of stable job and a career path. She had recently been offered a job on top of her four jobs to be a barista at Starbucks.
Mm,
She's like, what am I going to do with that? We wound up helping her, leveraging our social capital to get her a job. In other words, I sent her resume to my friends, right? People at the top of the food chain, that's how they get things, right? They call their friends. That's how they get
yep.
jobs. They call their friends. This community that we serve doesn't have the same level of connections.
Yep.
So we called our friends because we knew this person was very talented. The company interviewed her. Like four or five of the principals interviewed this person. They called us a few days later and said, well, she's not quite ready for the job that we were interviewing her for, but we're so impressed with her, we're going to create a job.
Wow.
So they created a job for her, $67,000 a year instead of 64, which
Mm,
is what she was working four jobs for. Now she's got one job at 67.
yep.
5 months later, they gave her a $5,000 raise. 7 months later, they promoted her to that original position that they were hiring for, and they raised her salary again, almost $10,000. And this is a
Wow.
person we met while we were in a public housing development. So I'm saying all that to say that there are so many talented people in our communities, right?
Yeah.
In underserved communities. They just need access to opportunity. And if they had that access, they got that job, they would kill it.
Yep.
And so to your
Yep.
point, we've done that for more than 100 people.
Wow. Now that's amazing. I mean, those are two amazing stories, and just to give context, right? So that we kind of know the umbrella in which all of this work is taking place. So is that through because I know you're the founder and the principal of Northern Real Estate Urban
Yes.
Ventures. Um, is that does that type of work take place underneath that umbrella?
So, great question. So, Projects Community Capital was founded under the what we call NRUV, that's our acronym brand, right? Northern Real Estate Urban Ventures. We founded the platform like maybe it was 10, 15 years ago now when we were working on a project in DC, a 70 unit project. One third of the units were replacement public housing units for a public housing development that was going to go under redevelopment. And I was frustrated really at that point in time, I wasn't building my own buildings. I was building other people's buildings, which is a
Mm,
whole other story. I was building all kinds of buildings for wealthy people, large nonprofits, national multi-billion dollar development organizations, but no one would lend me money for my own projects. Okay, we'll put a pin in that one. But I
mm,
started this because all the projects I've worked on, I could see that the people in the community wouldn't last 2 days or 2 weeks in their jobs, right? And so I said, I know there are people out there that can keep a job. I just need to find them. So I did that like 15 years ago on a project, and we had for construction jobs, we had a 94% retention rate, which
oh
no
wow.
one I would claim in this country has ever had on a construction project with what we call Section 3 residents, public housing residents, or people from a low income community working on a project that stuck with the job, right? The project the whole time, right? The whole
Mm,
time it was under construction. No one has 94%. We did it again. It was 98%. And we did this because, again, we were frustrated that people were unable to keep these jobs and the community wasn't really benefiting because the wrong people were being placed. People who had
yeah.
social challenges were being placed into employment, right, and lasting a short time. So we were able to find the people who were ready to work, place them into the projects that we were working on, and the people who weren't ready to work. We basically created a collective of nonprofit partners who would provide supportive services to help those folks get ready to work. So yes, we established that under the Northern Real Estate Urban Ventures brand, and then recently this year we actually got what we call CORES certified. So we are now certified by a national organization, of which there are probably 80 other companies in the whole country. Maybe four or five of them are actually for profits that have this certification to offer resident services. So we've basically folded all of that work that we started under our brand under construction, turned that into resident services that we provide for our developments and others. And actually, we're in the process of spinning off Project Community Capital because we are also technology based. We have an app called Employment Plug, and we
Mm,
have a an online portal where we process individuals' profiles to get them ready to work. And then we have a customer facing database called Workforce Leverage that employers can use to find ready to work individuals. So we're in the process of spinning that off because we're looking at getting some sort of technology dollars and grants to
yeah.
beef up our tech as a way to help place people into employment. But yeah, it's been a journey. And, we wound up also spinning off a nonprofit called WFL Collective. And that nonprofit is the part of the organization that does the case management. So all the supportive services work, really the heavy lifting to get people to a place where PCC, which is what we call Project Community Capital, where PCC can actually place them into employment.
Mm,
So it's a partnership. WFL does all the supportive services work now. PCC leverages its social capital to get people employed. And we think that should stay with the for profit side of the business because really those are the folks, and we see this now every day in the life we're living, how people of higher stature have access to things that the rest of us don't.
correct.
So we as a for-profit organization are using all of our high-value social capital to benefit people from underserved communities because they deserve it.
Yeah.
They just deserve access.
Yeah. No, that is very good. I like the intentionality. When you think about the way things are, it's not just from a singular thing, right? And so when you look at underserved communities, the haves and the have-nots, if you will, right?
Hmm.
Like there's a multitude of reasons that go into that, and
That's
being
right.
able to to not have tunnel vision, I think serves us better because you're able to understand, okay, if this person is going to be dependable at work, then we also have to make sure life outside of work is in a healthy place. So how
That
do we
part.
make sure that there's a connectivity between outside of the job, right? So that you can perform on the job. And a lot of times, it's just about let me get bodies, let me get the bodies, let me get the bodies. Can you do the job? And of course, people are going to tell you they can do the job, and don't want to bring in to the fact maybe their personal context because they think that that would disqualify them from the job. Right. And so now you have people that are maybe not in a position to take on what the job requires
Yes.
without that additional support with what happens outside of the job, right? And so being able to have that connectivity, I think that's again, that's very intentional, and I think that's transformative.
I appreciate that. Yes, we like to call ourselves the safety net for PCC platform members so that if they get into a jam, they have somebody who's got their back. And what's also very interesting about that, though, is that when people get into a jam, they will call us and ask us for help, but they don't do that every day or every week.
Mm,
Like that gentleman who had the challenge with the returning citizen who had the challenge with the getting to work and with the child support, that was like 2 years ago. And he hasn't called us and asked us for anything else since, right? It's like folks have pride in themselves and in their work, and they don't want handouts. Like this whole notion that people, I mean, sure, there's a group of people who are living off the government system, and there are all kinds of reasons for that. Mental health, physical health challenges, right? I mean, generational trauma, right, create situations where that are difficult for people to get out of. But for the most part, the people that we serve, they're just looking for an opportunity, and they just need, right, they're living check to check, or maybe they don't have a check, and they just need that little bit of help that will change the trajectory of their lives. The woman that we helped get that job, who was eventually promoted, right? The one who had four jobs and now has one. We actually also got her, she went to home ownership counseling, and in order to pre qualify, they basically told her she had too much credit card debt.
mm,
We paid it off for her, right? She was able to move out of public housing, move into a better neighborhood with her son. Her mother didn't have to take care of her son anymore. She could take care. We've changed her life forever,
yeah,
essentially, right? And so, yes, it is very intentional in terms of the way we do our work, and it has a humongous impact. And again, these folks, they're not contacting us every day for a handout, right? It's like that one time you need somebody to help so that you don't go off course. I mean, we are here for it.
yeah, yeah. And that is, I mean, that's that human centered, right? Development.
Human-centered approach.
Yeah,
Exactly.
that you mentioned.
Mhm.
And I think that's a very good way to frame it because you're dignifying humanity, right? It's not necessarily a handout. It's a hand up. And those things, those
Hand
are
up.
polar opposites. When you
Exactly.
people in a position to accomplish what they have the potential to become, like that's where you dignify them, right? And there is a difference between a handout and a hand up. And I love that
Absolutely.
approach. Yeah, yeah, no, that's good.
Absolutely.
That's good. That's good. So listen, I mean, you've accomplished so much. You're helping so many people. You mentioned the fact that you were doing a lot of building for others, but then there was a struggle to kind of raise that capital for things that you wanted to do on your own, but you were able to raise eventually some significant capital, right? And so I think what was it, north of 300 million?
Yes.
To be able to do that.
Yes.
So how were you able to do that? Because from our community, again, we're like, man, how I'm gonna raise 1 million for just this dream that I have, right? So talk to us a little bit about how you went from not being able to then being able to raise that significant amount.
So, honestly, you know, you can relate this whole story, right, to DEI. I mean, the truth is, in 2020, when George Floyd was murdered,
Mm,
when there was a racial reckoning in this country, my phone didn't stop ringing. Lenders and investors were looking for a developer. multiple developers, but specifically Black female developers, which are, very rare, right, in this business, looking for people like me to support. And the reality is, right, as I noted, I spent 25 years essentially building other people's projects. I mean, a few years working for other people and building projects for their partnerships.
Yeah.
But even once I started my own company, I was doing consulting and actually development management, building multiple buildings, 20, 30, 40, $50 million buildings for people all across the country. I've worked in half the states in this country, but I couldn't get anybody, right, like I said, to give me a dime. When I was looking at trying to do projects for myself and I would submit loan requests, people were always looking for collateral. I'm like, I don't have any collateral. I know where my collateral is because I've been able to trace my ancestry back to South Carolina and North Carolina, where my family was on plantations that I didn't own, right?
Mm,
My family didn't own, but my family worked. So I know where my land is and my generational wealth, and I
mm,
don't have it. So
mm.
sorry, I don't
You
have any collateral. But in 2020,
good.
they started making exceptions. They basically use a different lens to underwrite through, right? Like I'm not one of these trust fund babies, right? That's got all this money in the bank
Yeah.
so I can go do a deal and then they're underwriting to the guarantee I can provide because I've got $10 million, $20 million of wealth in the bank. Didn't have that. But what they did is they said, Gina, you've actually built buildings for 25 years. Like you've got more experience than a lot of majority companies' principals have,
Mm,
right? You'll see companies out here, 5, 10, 12-year people have been doing real estate and they are developing $1 billion portfolio, right? Because they've got the generational wealth or they've got the friends that have it, right? That they're leveraging to do their deals. I didn't have that. But again, people were willing now to say, okay, well, how can we underwrite? How can we use a different lens to underwrite you? Because you are equal in experience and capability to all these other companies that get money. And that's what did it. And the first, I would say, two or three folks that really demonstrated their belief in our work by providing us with funding was Capital Impact Partners. They're headquartered in Virginia. They have offices in a few places in the country, New York being one of them. And before it was cute, actually, in 2018, they gave me a commitment letter for financing for a project that I just finished in January. So actually, before George Floyd, they were the truth. After
mm.
George Floyd, we got this call. We were connected with a tax credit syndicator, income, a low housing income tax credit syndicator, and we negotiated with them. They basically asked us for our financials and they asked us for our capability statement. And then they never asked us anything else about our money, which was scary. And then we finally got an investor letter from them, a commitment for tax credits. And on the letterhead, it said Goldman Sachs.
Wow.
Yeah, exactly. That's when I kind of lost my mind.
Wow.
Because, right, again, the fact that I could get a tax credit investment from Goldman Sachs, I was like, oh my God, I have finally arrived. And it was all about this whole platform for 2 or 3 years, right? Because we know those times are over.
Mm,
But it was all about underwriting my experience. I could build what everybody else was building, right? I just didn't have the access to capital. So, even today, I'm still getting money, even though, we have challenges today with DEI.
yeah.
I've demonstrated to a lot of lenders and investors that I'm capable. So every week I'm still getting money. A few weeks ago, I closed a $750,000 pre-development loan with a local organization called National Housing Trust. I'm working right now on closing another loan for a project in DC. It's $1 million loan with Mercy Community Capital. So people still believe in our work, even though unfortunately we're having challenges with DEI. Uh, we still have people out there who believe in our experience, even though we don't have a balance sheet equal to some of these other majority developers.
Yeah. Yeah. No, that's very good. And when you think about the essence of DEI, right? Regardless of what three letters you want to use, right? It's always going to be something that is necessary, right? When you think about just where we are as a collective and being able to understand the context in which people are coming from. You have to, again, it goes back to that dignifying humanity. How do we take into account context? How do we take into account what we are looking to accomplish in the area that we're looking to accomplish it? And how can this really truly better serve this area where we are developing? You can't necessarily avoid it if you want to be successful in that vein.
Yeah, I mean, the interesting thing about the way I see DEI is that it really is about the lack of access to opportunity, right? And again, this whole notion that, you know, we have a 400-year deficit
Yeah,
in terms of our ability to earn money,
yeah,
to live a good life.
right.
So it was really important, I think, to level the playing field, which is what, lenders and investors, government agencies were trying to do after George Floyd, because it was clear that life in America is unequal,
Hmm.
right? And there are, massive groups of people. I mean, if we think about the communities that we serve, they have been purposefully disinvested in,
Yep.
right? And so, how do we, to your point, as a collective, improve life for each other? I mean, where we are right now is that we clearly cannot depend on the government for, um, to support these initiatives. And honestly, if I think about it, we're kind of past that time. We need to be helping ourselves,
Yeah.
right? We need to be out here supporting each other's work, creating economic opportunity for each other through underserved communities, through contracting opportunities. If you're in a position of power like I am in these projects, right, I very much work very hard to align myself with small Black businesses and obviously try to employ people from these communities, both in my own company as well as in the projects that I'm working on and the employers that are in the areas in which I work. Like I live every day to do that work because it's got to be done. And at this point, it is up to us
Yeah.
to do it.
Yeah, no, that's very good. I think being able to understand the fact that we have context, right? We understand all of the ins
Hmm.
and outs to our own community. So
True.
we are in a position to really lead with intention, especially those who are in a position to help, right? And so being able to have that ability and then put that into action, I think needs to happen more. Yeah.
I would agree. I think the sort of missing piece right now for me is philanthropy.
Mm,
I think that especially in these trying times, my hope is that philanthropy will step up in bigger ways to help some of these communities do better. Like, we have a nonprofit again that the one thing I'm challenged with is raising money for the nonprofit. In
yeah.
fact, we're investing our own money in that, right, to help these communities. But we feel like, again, for generations, there have been so many people, especially, property owners and developers, who have benefited from building housing in communities like the ones we're serving now,
Hmm.
but that's all they do. Now, again, quality housing is important, but the issue with these communities is bigger than just building one building, right? It really is about long-term economic empowerment. And that's what PCC offers, long-term economic empowerment, right? You have a job. We've helped people who have employment, who are underemployed, get better employment, right? So we've helped people go from $10 an hour jobs to $25 an hour jobs, right?
Oh,
So
yeah.
it's got to be a long-term solution. It can't just be you build a building, you go to the next neighborhood and you build another building. That's all fine and good, but it doesn't have a deep enough impact for the folks who deserve it. I
Yeah.
mean, you cannot be blamed, in my opinion, for the neighborhood you grow up in, especially if you're a person of color, or you are living in a rural community, right? We're born into what we're born into, And
Right.
in rural communities and urban communities, people are forgotten about. And so, I think it's up to all of us, and again, especially philanthropy now, to help sort of keep these initiatives going now that the government isn't.
Yeah. Yeah. No, that is good. With the sector that you're in, and of course being a double minority, right? Like a black woman in
That
real
part.
estate development,
Hmm.
with the amount of impact that you are able to have, are you seeing your other majority counterparts maybe look a little bit more closely at how you're doing things? And is there an opportunity to influence more human-centered development?
So I'm on it, child.
Yeah.
Since we got our core certification, my goal between now and the end of the year, in fact, I have my team pulling together, although I know lots of them, but I have my team pulling together a list right now of all of the affordable housing developers in the DMV and in Cleveland. And basically, I'm going to go pitch to all of them, PCC and WFL Collective.
Mm,
I'm going to say, right, you have this existing housing, you know, there are challenges really across the country, still sort of lingering from COVID, people not paying their rent. We can help you solve those problems. Like, we can reach out to folks and try to understand why they're not paying their rent or what their issues are so we can help address them and put them in a better economic position. And so, yeah, we're going to start selling that all day long, especially now that, again, we're nationally certified.
yeah.
We think we can add value to so many owners and developers, right? To focus on, leaving a lasting impact, being a developer, renovating a building or building a new affordable housing project. To me, what's better than to know that you can actually improve someone's life, right? They might be working at a grocery store for, $8 an hour, but they're interested in being a teacher, right? You can help them get into a college so that they can become a teacher, right? We will help people fill out the college applications. We will take them to a college to get the paperwork, like whatever it is, right? Again, we are the safety net, but I think that affordable housing developers can do so much more.
Yeah.
Part of it is that most of them don't have the skills we have, right? That our team has, and that's fine. And that's why we're going to start pitching that. Now that we have this national certification, we want all developers who want to make a deeper impact to hire project community capital, and then we can change the world.
Yeah, yeah. No, I agree. Dr. Gina, it has been a pleasure.
Pleasure is mine,
This
sir.
time has gone by much too fast for me. But I do thank you for being on. Yeah, I know the sky is not the limit. The work that you are doing, the
I
impact that
appreciate
you are
that.
having, not only just helping the people that have a direct opportunity to get those jobs, but you're transforming their families. They come right into those opportunities connected to others. And they're in a position now to support their families, pass that information, that those resources on, and it's transforming communities. And so I think just being able to replicate that, in the manner in which you're doing, definitely is needed. So now, thank you so much,
Thank you.
and yes, 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 we got to have you on again.
All
Yes,
right, anytime. Just let me know. Thank you.
thank you.